Actors, musicians, icons. There's a lot of glamorous people in the 501 saga, but this episode is for the sheer bulk of folks who are wearing jeans for working. The men who toil and the women who made these jeans. If you thought we were out of the fire, no, we're deep in the flames. This is the 201 episode, now on Denim.
In the wake of the great 1906 fire that destroyed the city was the great rebuild of San Francisco. The city would go from being 90% destroyed to a marvelous new wonder of the age that hosted the World's Fair less than a decade after the tragedy. Levi's main San Francisco buildings were undergoing construction weeks after the fire of April 1906. The factory would be open by the end of the year, built in only 4 months. Mrs. Strauss had passed. His nephews Sigmund and Jacob Stern were running the show. Jacob was the head honcho, meeting with the mayor and signing off on all the big money issues, while younger brothers Sigmund and Archie were on the philanthropy side of things. Jacob Davis was semi-retired and really just around to make sure his 26-year-old son Simon was on the right track. Simon had watched his father run the factory at an up-close view since he was a child. In a way, he knew how to get things done. Still, Simon was much more interested in making his name stand apart from his father's. Throughout his career with Levi Strauss & Company, he would have a few accomplishments that went nearly unrivaled. The first was the construction and operations of the Valencia Street Factory. The architect was Albert Pisis. You already know his work. He designed the Flood Building, the iconic triangular-shaped building of San Francisco. He also designed Shirtwaist Israel Synagogue, both San Francisco buildings that withstood the 1906 earthquake and fire. The layout of the Valencia factory was meant to optimize productivity, allowing controlled sunlight in from all angles and having electrical outlets to keep working throughout the night. Simon would be in charge of hiring new hands for the factory. These interviews were conducted at the Oakland factory, where Levi's had been making the Sunset shirts, but had now been the makeshift headquarters following the 1906 fire. Most of the prospective folks were San Francisco residents. At the time, primarily Irish and Italian-born ladies who could mend a stitch, and their chapter's coming up next.
A lot of immigrant women, Chinese, Russian, Italian, Latino. They would share lunches together and they would just point, shoulder shrugs.
But there's one very special hire that took place in 1909 by Albert Hirschfeld. Hirschfeld had been hired by Mrs. Strauss even before the 1873 meeting of Jacob Davis. And he had become the first person to become an executive working his way up the ranks that wasn't part of the family. In turn, Hirschfeld passed it forward and hired a 17-year-old whippersnapper by the name of Milton Grunbaum. Now remember that name. He would become the greatest corporate Levi's hero of the first half of the 20th century. His story will unfold in these episodes, 1910s, 1927, and 1937. But there's so many awesome stories about Milton that I can't hold back, and I gotta give you a couple right now. Milton would be working at the factory as well as every other part of the company. He would rescue napping employees by throwing stacks of 501s over their sleeping bodies to cover them from the eyes of Abe Stern, one of the family members who liked harassing lazy employees. The other is when Milton told Simon Davis and the Stern brothers that he would not take a bonus unless all the girls in the factory received one too. For the women who sew. The early 20th century was a terrible time to be a factory worker. Folks operated the new machinery without safety precautions. There's no such idea of corporate responsibility to take care of the workers. The tragedies that befell Levi's, Amoscag, and many other companies then should not be allowed. Jacob Davis required his female sewers to provide and bring home each day their own sewing machines. And they had to be either a Singer number 2 or Grovers and Baker number 1. Tragedies at the factory. Being an a-hole to your employees and taking advantage of them is one thing, but clearly allowing hazardous environments to exist and not providing safety or even medical care is outrageous. Now, there aren't any recorded deaths at the Valencia Street Factory, but there were some terrible incidents. Many ladies lost fingers applying shank buttons to jeans. They'd be moving too fast and leave old Pointer in the way of a stamping machine and pow! A shank button right through the bone. The worst recorded incident is probably the time a woman got her hair caught in a machine and it took her scalp off. She survived, but her family had to pay all the hospital bills and the company wouldn't dare pay any sick leave. The Stern family running the show were not pure villains. They actually did take care of sick employees, but it was based on their own generosity instead of legal requirements. Levi's as a company was growing exponentially throughout the 20th century, and a lot of these women hired to sew pockets and buttons ended up with decades-long careers teaching others and working up the ranks. Levi's wasn't the only denim company in San Francisco. 100 years ago, there was a competitive market to hire seamstresses, and Levi's knew that they had to pay more to get the best workers. This was a job that could afford you to kind of sort of buy a home in San Francisco.
That they're able to buy a home, they're able to support me, support my family.
The hardest working and most skilled ladies were given 10% raises, which led to a sort of upper middle class within the company workers. Now, this would all come to a halt in 1964 when new machines were implemented that basically made all the hand-worked items irrelevant. The company could hire less skilled workers and the wages dropped. The Haas family that inherited the Levi's company would face a lot of backlash in the 60s and 70s for their practices of lowered wages and malicious firings. It seemed to be that the women who worked there the longest had the most stories to tell about the family, be it good or bad. The Haas's didn't want storytellers within the ranks. A little sad to hear.
My mother, she was a seamstress 25 years at one of the last remaining union shops, which was Levi's on Valencia Street. I wore Levi's every day of my life because of it.
The Valencia Street Factory would continue to make 501 jeans. In the late 1990s, when Levi's was just starting the LVC line, they made a lot of the sub-brand items at the factory in San Francisco. Items from this factory are marked with the number 555. You can see it on the product tag and the waist side buttons. Valencia made is par excellence in the LVC collectors community. In the turn of events that the 501 saga lays out, we will see great achievements fall, and this is one of them. No longer are there items made in the Valencia Street Factory. Nothing since its closure in 2002. The building is now a school, and that holds in line with Mr. Strauss's charitable concerns for children.
The Friends School, very expensive, elite school.
Oy vey. I am a consumer. Everything I acquire, use, and dispose of has a cost. Be it breathable air, usable space, talent's time, plant, animal, and even human life. The true commodities of life. This is what everything costs. How do you divide your fraction? If I handed you a latte and said, 3 mice died in the making of this, enjoy, you might react, are they inside the drink? No, that's gross. But in the growing, transportation of the crops, plus construction of the operations location, transport to you, the consumer, some things said today. Do you enjoy it more or less? So what if I told you the shirt on your back was made by the perished lives of 100 American teenage girls? That's ridiculous. Except for that one time. In 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist fire killed 146 workers in a Manhattan building, most of them Italian and Jewish working-class women in their 20s. Full of life and hope for a new path in an up-and-coming world. taken advantage of by corporate greed. This is in sync with the 501 saga and the struggle most working folks face today. Safety codes didn't always exist, and the tragedy of the Triangle Shirtwaist fire was the catalyst to get America reforming labor regulations. Believe it or not, the Triangle Shirt Company was considered safe by the standards back then. A factory like Amoscag in 1911 was in shambles and notoriously cruel to its employees. And that's what led to the Cone Mills deal. I remember in high school reading Upton Sinclair's The Jungle and remembering how important this book was at reforming the meat industry. Now, here's an event that reformed the clothes on our back, but it's not something as well taught in American history. The world celebrates this as International Women's Day, but in 20th century America, it was barely taught. This is a story in American history that is taught more in foreign countries than where it took place. Those events affect us all. March 25th, don't forget the carnations. Historic budget denim. Grizzly denim. 1880s. This was Levi's making their own bootleg jeans. They licensed a company in Fresno to make riveted garments and sell them for cheaper to compete with the bootleg riveted market. This was in the 17 years from 1873 to 1890, when they had the exclusive patent to be the only riveted garment makers. This licensing out would continue into the 20th century when the kids' coveralls became so popular that they licensed out the airline play suits, a cheaper version of the coveralls. You can see that instead of saying Levi's, it says by Levi Strauss. Now in 1890s, they introduced the Lot 2 items, alongside the 501s, and the Lot 2 ran all the way until about 1940. And this episode is all about exploring the Lot 2 and how Levi's was making a cheaper alternative to the Lot 5 XX items. Whereas the 5 was meant to mean the best possible, there were some ways they could cut costs and make cheaper items. Cheaper buttons, patch, the quality of the denim, the quality and experience of the labor used in manufacturing, and of course, the advertising. Now in 1911, they made an even cheaper model, the Lot 3. And we can see from this 1910s catalog that when 501s would run you about $1.10, the 201s were 20% cheaper, and you could save an extra 5% off that if you got the 333s. To save cost, third grade denim quality was used. The details got toned down. They skipped the arcuate, simpler pocket design, and the cut was a flat back instead of a yoke. The cheaper dye, a lower dip indigo, fades with greenish hues. The 333 is a unique item in denim history. Seconds. 1890s to 1940s? Now these are a fun story. I'm not sure how long they ran for, but I know it was during the first half of the 20th century. They would have items like, say, 501s that something was wrong with, so they would have a seamstress cut out the bad parts and patch it up. Then it would go on sale at a discounted rate, so seeing rigid pairs with patches was actually common at the time.
Some of the irregular Levi's clothes, or the color didn't come out right, or the pocket might be backwards, or it didn't have the red tab on it, but we'd take those home and she would sell them, and we would be the go-to store for day laborers. And
the orange tab line started in the 1960s and pretty much all the way until the 1990s, and it evolved as it went through. And this is a whole different beast that encompasses a few concepts. One of those concepts was cheaper denim items. The others would be fast fashion and rarities. By the time you get to the 80s, it was primarily for kids' items. Orange tab is something with a cult following that has stood the test of time, deserves its own episode. Getting into the modern age, 2010s to present, Levi's has been doing Levi's Signature and the Denizen line. And these are fast fashion, sweatshop-like factory, environmentally polluting, skinny, stretchy crap that is antithetical to this channel. If it brings in enough cash to fund projects like the historical LVC line, then thanks. But I think the reality is far from that. Levi's also has the second-hand program, which is a nice idea, but currently lacks any LVC or actual historical salvage 501s. I've always been under the belief that having solid items that last is the cheapest way, but it's a wide world out there. All in all, these clothing items have always been meant for folks who work hard for their money, and the company knew that, so you can see that they've been focusing on a cheaper alternative since the 19th century, and I see no reason why that would stop. I'm going to comment on the fit for the 1920s 201s. I wear them at the waist and an inch below the navel. They have 3 fasteners. I mostly just use the cinch. I'll be honest, it is a little cumbersome to have a belt with suspender buttons and to put your belt through with the cinch. The thighs are the widest of any LVC pair I have ever seen. The bagginess gives you more room for some athletic activities such as skateboarding, or as this dude does parkour wearing them. Nice. The pockets are really shallow, but oddly the 5th pocket is the deepest I've encountered. I usually cuff them, do a 2 times roll, but I think with a high single cuff up, they look great. It's a specific style. Matching it with other turn-of-the-century clothing really makes the look. My 67 sack coat gets a decent amount of wear. It's nice to have this style of denim coat that differs from most others. I love the 2 hidden pockets. I can wear it straight or as a shell. If you're wearing a pair of 201s or another lot item from this list, then leave a comment on what you think the fit is like. The 201s have been released in 1915, 1920s, and 1937 year models. The 1915 is the oldest it goes. They only made the Distressed Archive Vault limited edition pair. The major detail is having the sizing on the patch at the bottom before it was moved to the side. The 1920s. This is the most popular one. It's what I have. You can find rigid and distressed variations for the 1920s. I thought it worked well with the history in my collection versus the 501s. It is a time when more folks started wearing jeans as pants in non-working situations. They would opt for a cheaper pair. I do enjoy wearing them. 1937. This is a really special item because it is from the first LVC catalog, 1996. It looks like a pair of 1937 501s, but the leather patch says 201. Not sure if that's historically accurate, but at the end of the run of the 201 line, it probably fused in together with the 501s. Lot 207 sack coat, 4 pockets. This is the Boss Man coat. It has riveted pockets and comes in black denim. Possibly the most similar to the historic Shane coat. The Shane coat is the oldest known sack coat in the Levi's vault. Lot 209, bib and brace. What Americans call overalls. And there's a few of these in today's list. 211, jumper denim shirt. These are amazing shirts that we need more of everywhere. 213, jacket. Oldest Type 1 style, 1929. There's this gap in denim jackets from 1897 to 1929 in the LVC collection. Sack coats fill it in for the era. Lot 214, 1-pocket sack coat from 1901. Lot 3 items. The Lot 333 jeans. Amazing, truly unique. Simplified details, greenish hue, dated 1911. just like this video. There's also the 340 jumper pullover denim shirt. This item is even more rare. It has the arcuate in the pocket, but the jeans don't. Now for some lot numbers that are below 100. So I'm calling these lot 0. Lot 50 Cortland overalls. Released in summer 2023, Asia only. One of the 2 items that has the 2 Horse brand colored patch. Very playful color schemes. Lot 66 bib overalls. My wife has them and loves them in summer. Lot 67 sack coat from 1915. I love my sack coat. It's a functional denim jacket if you want pockets. Watch that episode for the full review. Lot 70 sack coat from 1919, distressed. Lot 90 cover-ups. Okay, these are super cool. Red line selvage and made in Italy. If you can get some use out of it, if you like wearing it, then try to find a pair. My wife has the women's coveralls, but she doesn't wear them as much as the overalls. This was immense to catalog, and I probably didn't get everything in the lot numbers, so if you know something by LVC that fits into these lot numbers, then please fill it in the comments. The lot 2, 3, and sub 100 items have specific details that you would find in a lot of garments around the turn of the century. They usually fit close to the 501s in relation to the years that they are made. But there are 2 special features you will see on a lot of items. The fun buttons. Ellis & Co. in Victorian-era style font that modern-day folks can call Wonka-esque. Or donut buttons. Donut buttons are these buttons with the concave dip in them, about the size of a pea. 501 shank buttons look like this, but then they have a cap over them. Foregoing the cap saved a few cents on the product sale. However, some 201s had covered shank buttons. Then there is the noticeable patch. Only the Lot 5 and pre-1890 garments had leather patches. The cheaper lot items had cloth patches, sometimes called oilcloth, linen cloth, and fabric patches. They ran on Lot 2, 3, 4, and 7. From 1890 to the 1960s, when Jack Cron patches took over the scene. Around 1906, they added a trademark line of the text. From 1890 to 1920, the patches had the sizing on the lower right-hand side of the patch like the 501s. 1920s, the patch sizing info got moved to the entire left side of the patch running vertically. In 1935, the patch material was reformulated and the ink rubbed off much more easily. This is why oilcloth patches from 100 years ago show the 2-horse patch better than later cloth patches and leather patches from the same era. Most of the time I'll read the LVC corporate spiel that they put in with the letters, but I got a special treat today, an actual historic letter from the 1890s of the company expounding their new love for the 201s. We have taken the liberty of adding to your order a sample pair of our number 2 riveted overalls at $7 per dozen. This is the article that we have lately put on the market, and shall thank you to compare it carefully with any riveted overall that may be offered you, and oblige. Yours truly, Levi Strauss & Company. I'd like to take a moment to look at some historic Lot 2 items. Looking at the catalog, you can see a lot of the number 2 items follow the numbering system of Lot 5 items. 203, 04 for kids. Notice the patch in the center of this pair. What a clean pair from 130 years ago. Lots 211 and 212 were jumper denim shirts. Here's a 212 with the collar cut off. Only these oilcloth patches can you still see any of the markings when it's this old. The 201s really struck notice when a 19th century pair was dug up and sold for $36,000. Then another one a couple years later for twice as much. The Levi's vault houses this wonderful Klondike pair found in the Klondike that was used by a gold miner in the gold rush. I like to think it was owned by Scrooge McDuck. Prove me wrong. Tracy Panic dug up this great story about the pair from Mono Lake. She found the pair as insulation inside of a wall. And she also got this great picture of Joe Paguna McLaughlin wearing 201s. Don't worry, guys, I didn't forget you. I got what every hard-working man wants. A poem. For men who toil. To them folks who make their living with sweat. You work with your hands, you break your back, doing the work that needs to be done. Well, let's see here. Who else is gonna pick up digging trenches, plumbing pipe, bearing loads, laying bricks and sealing mortar tight? Who else is gonna risk life and limb for resources and ingenuity to make visions a reality? Without your help, what marvels could we erect? Construct, repair, demolish, repeat ad nauseum. Sycophantic revelry, operating heavy machinery, never sycophantic. For your brawn you are hired, for brain's greed you'll be fired. Replaced by robots and someone else's desire, but there's a dream to be the proprietor, to show off your skills, craft your trade, and never be ashamed. Or just to get through the day, go home and enjoy the little pay. You got a family maybe, a companion to understand, or maybe an artistic plight. The work is essential to being human, and you can rely on much. Measure twice, use the right tool for the job. Crap rolls downhill and paydays every Friday. When the LVC decided to make their first items, they chose a classic era 1955 501 and a historic era 1937 201. The 201s are a special addition to my collection, being made in Valencia, fitting well, and having some unique features. Real vintage 201s are floating around, but more rare than 501s from the same time period. If you do find a real vintage 201, then you know it was owned by a folk who needed to pinch a few pennies. And that's something very relatable. There are some other companies that make Lot 2 styles, and I would say take advantage of them if you like the deal and the item. As far as the impact of who makes our clothes and where, I think it's not too much to ask that no one be injured from making these clothes. A little hard work, sweat, cuts in your fingers. I've done that for most jobs, but a disabling injury or more, that shouldn't be part of it. The people working on these clothes should be treated with dignity, fair pay, safety precautions, and the pursuit for self-betterment. You're not locked into one position, but you can grow financially, as an individual, creatively, in your career. I think the best thing I've learned is in which denim companies to support. I would much rather choose a proprietor-run small company tailoring the denim. This is craftsmanship and without the big label. You can get some nice quality rare items for a decent price. But remember that you are using someone's time, so you should have to pay for that. Things have to be fair. I'm glad there are these Lot series. It has expanded my understanding of what the 5 series is and how jeans came to be. A big shout out to my Patreon members, Copper Rivet members Fitsanu Boone Prossert, Jujana, and Sam Z. If you'd like to support the channel, you can purchase a t-shirt from Unbleached Apparel. Use the code Denim. Or you can buy some awesome selvage denim from my affiliate links. Join the Patreon, or just a simple subscribe really helps it out and keeps me going. Thanks for watching, and love your jeans.